Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's production of the Crucible. We had a bunch of fun games last night, so we're excited to be bringing you guys another night full of entertaining games and hopefully some close ones. We're going to be getting in with our casters right here. Here we are. I am joined tonight by Infernosis and Alios. I just pronounced it wrong a bunch, so we're not going to do that again.
She spelled it wrong in Gardic phone.
It's a hard name, okay?
Is
but how are you guys doing tonight, Infernosis? How are you feeling?
I'm doing great. Super glad to be back for the Crucible and be actually in the main stage season, out of the qualifiers, out of the bad shaky parts, and actually into it with the servers hopefully working.
Yeah, out of the nerve-wracking, am I even gonna play in this league? And out of the, can we even play in the league with the servers? And what about you, Allie? How are you feeling tonight?
Well, I am annoyed because if I'd known that Scott was wearing a Hawaiian shirt, I would have worn one with him.
I can take it off.
Let's
Can we have this on?
maybe aftermarket content for.
There's a staircase there.
Bye.
Oh, and he's back. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about last night's game real quick. Obviously, we saw Core play twice, first against Wizards, Washington Wizards, and then again against Space Tube, so it was a long night for them. They had two back-to-back max overtime maps that went to the last second of the last possible round. They lost their games against Washington Wizards, which was a bit of a grudge match, meaning that Washington Wizards is now 2-0 against them. And then they won. Wait, right? They won against... I forget.
They won against Space Tubes.
Yes, they won against Space
Tubes.
Tubes.
They lost against Space Tubes.
They lost
against Space Tubes.
They beat Washington.
I don't know what
Oh
I'm
my gosh,
talking
you're
about.
right.
I'm spreading misinformation.
They beat Washington Wizards, guys. And they lost against Space Tubes, which was a bit of an upset in that last one. And it was also a long game. Can you imagine playing 30 rounds of Rainbow Six Siege in a row? No breaks.
I think I'd cry.
I think it'd be a lot. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But looking at the second games as well, we had...
Team Cruelty?
Yes, Team Cruelty, because I don't have it pulled up. I'm not gonna lie. Team Cruelty against Outlast and JJ and Co. versus 1HP. Team Cruelty and JJ both won their maps 7-2, right?
Yeah. Pretty
Yes.
big blowouts for
You
them.
guys are making me second guess. I thought I had it.
I think my favorite part about the latter two games is that for 1HP versus JJ and Co. Now reality TV, I've been told, is that it took until round 5 for someone on 1HP that wasn't gold to kill someone. So they were combined like 7 and like something, with all 7 of those kills being from gold, which is, as we in the biz say, far from ideal.
Right. Well, looking at tonight's games, we are going to be seeing Friendship Team versus Up Next. Well, Up Next. They are the first game for tonight. So tell us a little bit about Friendship Team, Infernosis.
Well, Friendship Team is XLG, right? There's not too much you really can say past that. They have their coaching staff still behind them. It's Eddie, Silent, Kixro, Wi-Fi, Nick. Now, there is a new player. It's Nick, not on part of LG, but they were part of Carnico. They're previously on Fluffy Aimers, so you know that they're going to play just fine. Obviously, an invite team. There's a lot of expectations for them, but we were fairly impressed with Up Next previously, and they kind of just snuck through the first stage of the qualifier. So this could be a good matchup, but, I mean, this is an pro team, so you're looking at them and saying there's a whole lot here that Up Next is gonna have to go off against.
All right, well, hopefully they can
EWC as well, so
yeah, hopefully they can live up to their name a little bit there. Labeling them as X-Pro is gonna put a target on their backs and definitely make us watch out for them in tonight's games. Let's look at their opponent a little bit though. Ali, can you tell us anything about Up Next?
So it is a bit more of a pug stacky team, which I'm not as familiar with a lot of these players, but I do know that Kiru has been kind of a T2 staple for a little bit, having one Element 2 as well with Envy, which did have a couple players that went on to go to Pro League in the next couple seasons. But the notable thing that I noticed when I kind of dug into their OPL page from the qualifier is that they really like Clubhouse, and every map they played was either a blowout or max overtime with 0 in between, regardless of whether they won or lost. So it's really interesting kind of for me, and I want to see how that translates to a team like Friendship Team.
All right, so it sounds like we're hoping tonight to see one of those longer matches, and it sounds like they might be going for club, but let's take a look at these map bans real quick.
Well, it's nothing too crazy so far. Bank being taken off first, followed by Border. Unfortunately, Chalet did have to get the boot at some point or another, so a little bit of a downward spiral. Thankfully, my colorblind self does not have to see any sort of labs or anything else in between. No consulates, which was a bit of a wrench and things. We saw it a couple times being snuck through there in the qualifier stages, so it wasn't the worst thing in the world. Cafe Dorsky FC is knocked off, and as we're getting closer to those finals, we are seeing the fact that Skyscraper is getting let through, and honestly, Ali, I'm kind of impressed with that. What do you feel like?
Skyscraper is, I think, a really interesting map to see, especially with matchups like this, just because it is one that I feel requires a lot of coordination and cohesion when you're on that attack. It is a side on this map that is often viewed as very, very oppressive, and teams that are better at coordinating and using utility and allocating bodies are usually able to overcome that. But when you have teams that have less of that versus teams that have more, it can oftentimes be a slaughter, right? And that's not to say that I don't have faith in Up Next, but I do think there is going to be a little bit of a hill to climb just because of the combination of the map they're on with the team they're playing against.
Well, I don't mean to jinx either teams, but it sounds like you guys are predicting Friendship Team to win tonight, I'm guessing. Yes? No? I'm getting mixed reactions.
It's hard to root against them, right? It's hard to root against them, but we did see a really good series yesterday with Core and Washington Wizards in their matchup, and seeing the talent lineup into this, it's hard to imagine if it goes anything similar to that first game here in Crucible. It's going to be Friendship Team that ends up taking it.
All right. Well, we are going to jump right into the game here, so we'll have to see if these predictions are correct. Good luck to both of you on the cast with such an interesting game, and good luck to both teams.
All right, Ali, we've got our bans going underway. Skyscraper, a map that a lot of teams do not envy, and one that was strugglesome or maybe troublesome for the attacking side. Or sorry, for the defensive side. No, I'm almost right. Attacking side. OT was very different at the start of that Washington Wizards and Core game yesterday. Only a single attack was won in the mainstay rounds for both teams, and then they entered overtime, winning both of their attacks when they started things off. So will things turn out any differently? I don't think it's going to be too different. Defense is exceptionally strong for this map, but Friendship Team is also starting off on that side, and it becomes a mental battle for Up Next if they cannot survive this first half.
They do have the advantage, I feel, or semi-advantage, I feel, of going into the defense for the second half. So if they could just get a couple rounds, they can start to bring things back. Although that does also give Friendship Team a ton of time to work up some momentum and just kind of crush them. Because even if you do go to the advantageous side in the end, if you're down 6-0, 5-1, it's not really odds I'm going to like.
Yeah.
We want to discuss the bans just a little bit here. Those are usually pretty important. And I want to particularly draw attention to that Cade ban, because it's not normally something you see on this map, I feel. Because Cade himself isn't an unusual ban, but there are usually other things that you expect on this map, like, say, a Valkyrie or a Fenrir. But Cade is going to make opening walls a little bit easier, and we're probably going to see a little bit more prevalence of bandit tricking on sites like Office, which is going to help that attack just a little bit, I feel. Which, obviously, Friendship Team, they're confident without it, otherwise they wouldn't have banned it, but it does give a little bit of headroom for Up Next.
I do like seeing that Deimos is taken off the board for a map that is so prevalent for just these tighter corners. This is the domination you can have defensively for holding corners. You want to make your job a whole lot easier. Friendship Team knocking that off, and while also taking a zombie off the board means, well, you can't really fortify or solidify your positions with, Fortnite-style building at any position in this map. You at least can rest on your laurels in some of these corners and tighter spaces that you won't have a helicopter constantly chasing you down, pinging you out from the floorboards down below with the information. Up Next, taking up that Dokkaebi, no calls, no audio cue, and most importantly, as you had mentioned in the qualifiers when we were casting together, it doesn't distract somebody by forcing them to pull out their phone to turn off that alarm, to turn off that beeper. So Up Next, coming into the attack, and they do have their solidified operator picks, and that Monty is something that gets banned on a majority of maps. Having that be let through means that black door upstairs on that second floor is going to make the approach a whole lot easier, as long as they can keep Friendship Team from knocking that first player off the board, because nitro cells are available, and with Finver on the board as well, vision is going to be a major problem for the entry for up next.
I also do think that Monty is noteworthy just because even if they don't go for kind of the classic top black take, he is really good at taking space. Just as we see Kiru doing here at the bottom of black stairs. He's worked his way up. I'm not sure if they know he's here. It does look like we're seeing a very black-oriented take here with Kiru almost falling, with Kixro holding a very good angle on him. As now we're going to see a roamer on the bottom floor look to start creaking towards that area, as up next look to, I think, try to push in like up black stairs and then just get it up.
Got an extension from Friendship Team off towards office, but they started to fall back, and in good timing, Wi-Fi is able to take Kiru off. No more roam to the stairs, but Nicey's already make their way over here and even found a kill in the process. Kixro not able to survive this push. A safe hold will not take that black door, opting instead to take the stairwell previously garnered by Kiru and now Taizao. This will be a slow, steady way. He'll clear out that Surya gate, starting to taste the Selmas now on this wall. Both sides can be opened up, and Safe Hold can bring this corner to give a bit of a safe angle for Taizao to maybe get a shot down this hall. Get a couple connections. There are some pings going for them as well, but with two players of Wi-Fi and Eddie holding the top of the staircase, it's only a matter of time until the action starts to unfurl, and the dangerous objective to look towards is going to be that B site. That's not where this blood's going to go down. It's on A, and it's Nick through the wall into the doorway, able to secure that first, and down goes your Monty. King Talk's not able to survive this push.
It's a very one-dimensional sort of take we're seeing here. There's a ton of room for these defenders to move around and not really worry about their backsides at all, which is why we see the positioning that we do. And look at this. They're all just focused on this Monty, because where is Ryan? It's going to be a 4 versus 1 here. Now a 3 versus 1. Oh, the one tap. This is going to narrow things down to a 2 versus 1, Scott, but still such a long hill to climb.
Goodness. Ryan, 3 kills, needs a 4th. Low on HP, and Nick's sitting plenty fine on the opposite side. You play into a slow. Geisha Hall stepping out now towards main. Sitting just on the other side of elbow, top of stairs. Plant will be rotated away from B and back over here towards A. Sticking this diffuser would be the right idea, as you have Nick stepping in, extending SMG out, wanting more. Ryan needs to start pre-firing, needs to escape from this doorway, but doesn't feel the safety net to do so. On a swing out through long hall and in through the soft wall, secures the frag and the 4th kill for you to get this round for your attacking side.
Friendship Team committed the cardinal sin of being in a man advantage situation in a 1vx, and they let Ryan have the one-on-one fights that he needed. 3 people peek him, and 3 people die trying off of some beautiful mechanical aim after that diffuser went down. But I do also want to draw attention to the earlier parts of that round, because obviously the clutch was impressive, but the fact that it had to be a clutch is definitely worth talking about. Because the way that attack went, it was very one-dimensional, I feel. There wasn't enough pressure on other areas. There was no one pressuring Geisha or on the window on Karaoke. So everyone in Friendship Team was solely focused on the players actively at the top of black stairs, and they just didn't have to worry about anything else while they were doing so.
I think the assumption is that it's going to be a shield inside of Shrine or outside Shrine connector, just trying to keep that outlook and to shut down that entire VIP side approach. Drum, viable option, but nobody, like you said, towards Geisha, no pressure towards Geisha balcony. Up next, just went in very straightforwardly, trying to lock down all sorts of angles, and I mean, if you're going to take back stairs, if you're going to try to go into Karaoke from there, you also have to be willing to have a player on that first floor. And the moment Kiro gets taken off from Wi-Fi that's still roaming around just outside of kitchen, you need to start being able to back pressure and take that approach much quicker. I felt a little bit slow from up next, but it doesn't matter. They're saved by Ryan. They're saved in that first round, and now can play into the second one where Friendship Team are opting for something maybe a little bit different. We do see a shield over towards Shrine, but it's the opposing side now for objective. Off towards Office, and great use here. Use your drone to detonate that shield that I was just talking about to try to remove these footholds for Friendship Team, as up next start to prowl forward once again with this Monty. A safe hold wants to survive maybe a little bit longer than they did the round prior.
I do like that they're trying to lean into the Monty,
Wow.
but I don't like the positioning
Even
there.
shorter.
It is going to be a trade, which there are worse things to have happen, but the Monty we were just talking about, that is so much space-taking potential just gone.
Ash being cleared. There's no way. There's no drone down on the first floor here for Kitchen. Silence. No easier of a kill in front of you as they drop through that hatch. It's a 4 versus 3. No Monty. Now no skeleton key for the Buck. Only thing you have to clear these floorboards is going to come down to either wasting your drones or using your Ash, which just as quickly as that is taken down by Wi-Fi and a refrag does go. It's kicks being removed for Friendship Team, but a Nitro so could make problems more dirty as it's cleared away just barely by Kiru. We've seen a player disadvantage turn back around for Up Next, but Ryan has been cleared and Up Next are lacking that one big man as Nick once again strikes true to King Talks. The Nitro that was detonated from below goes nowhere, but it doesn't matter. Nick wants their piece of the pie, and they'll get the final one to tally it up again.
I feel like there was some really effective use of drones that round. I mean, you commented on it. We saw Ryan drop down through the kitchen hatch, and then there is just a player there waiting for him, because why wouldn't there be a player below with the Nitro cell in a position like that? You haven't cleared it at all. And that kind of lack of information gathering and that lack of positional awareness, I feel, has been something that's been present in both rounds now, which the first round didn't really matter because, I mean, Ryan just pulled out a LeBron play. But this previous round, it does matter because they managed to shut that down before it's able to get anything done here. And now, see, going back to this first side here where we saw Ryan pull that clutch, but things are a little bit different for Friendship Team. They're pulling out the Goyo instead of that Fenrir, which is a change that I really like. Because Goyo has a lot of really good time denial, but I think more importantly, with the Monty, if you don't want Monty in a space, throw a Goyo canister down where you think he's going to go, and then detonate it. And that's kind of what we see them trying to do with the Goyo canister on that karaoke wall, and I'd imagine the top block Norway.
Backstairs would be another viable option. They assume that Kira was able to get there fairly quickly, so first floor could be a big point for denial for Friendship Team. Now, they didn't play that first round necessarily incorrectly. It went plenty fine. It was just the problem child of Ryan that managed to pick up way too many frags in a man disadvantaged situation. So they don't have to reevaluate everything from the ground up. But the expectation is that Up Next are going to change up their formula. They're not going to do the same one-dimensional approach. They know they barely got away with it in round one, so they want to start to vary things up for the most part. So you do see that VIP balcony wall being opened up by a pocket breach. The can opener just getting a little bit of sight lines through now. Safehold does not really want to try to drop the shield to step in through that. They'll rotate elsewhere and go in through window. As you do see Kix is trying to vie for at least some sort of denial, maybe some information. This is the shield I highlighted in round one as well. They want to make sure they have it here. This was cleared by a Rotero drone just the round prior, but not having the Flores for Up Next means they don't have the easiest way to clear it. They'll have to use Tai Zhao's drone instead, send out that breaching round, and make sure that, well, your player can't sit behind that, and Friendship Team will have to default back to their site.
They have been pretty quick work of this extension over Office side, although there wasn't really much there to begin with. But now is when things are actually going to start getting tricky, as they have to work their way in towards Geisha as well as this Drum area. Drum going to be given up mostly for free, but there's a lot of resistance once they actually get inside of it, like Nick. Sitting at the top of White's wave stairs, he gets to pick up the Tai Zhao. So yet another opener for his team, which is not quite going to be refragged, as we see another player get down, as there's a lot of great pressure here for Friendship Team.
The Vulcan canister that's been cleared away towards Geisha. Really just Friendship Team playing this stall and playing it perfectly. The Toxic Babes are starting to be unfurled as well. King Tox has been recollected, so Up Next do still have 4 players up. But you know that there's a player down on first floor, and that's Eddie, trying to get maybe another pick through those floorboards. The connection they have to Drum is just too viable to leave standing. That's why Ryan is currently roaming about here on this first floor, but too much noise could be a problem child for them, as the ears are very readily apparent, and they'll fall back just behind that short bar. But it won't matter. Crossfire from down below, just below that side of statue, and Shrine is just You can't let that drop be so easily conceived for Friendship Team. Now it's a 5 versus 2, and King Tox, who was DB'd earlier, now peaked back up, has very little HP to work with, and they only have a Monty next to them to deal with. AK out, it does connect for King Tox, and Wi-Fi, who was down below and just now cleared away so concisely. Friendship Team maybe hoping for no way to get into sight for up next, but Safehold is here. Has a player for a crossfire, just doesn't have the ability just yet to place down this diffuser, because even with the single wall reinforced there on triple, it's not going to save you at any space, as King Talks off in the distance, gets their head taken off, and Safehold will not survive too much longer. It is sent to the next round. Defense holds strong.
So now we're starting to see some of those attacking woes, which is going to inspire tactical timeout from up next. And I think this is a good place to call it, right? Because we did talk about this map being very, very defender-sided, but I feel that a lot of that is because of some discombobulation coming out from the side of up next. Oftentimes, it looks like when they're thrown into situations that require active problem solving, that's kind of when there are holes that are quite large usually, and that's when we see Friendship Teams start to kind of poke their finger in and just tear a giant hole, using the small one kind of as the catalyst for it. So they just need to tighten things up a little, gather information on what exactly is up ahead so you can properly problem solve. Make sure you have the utility for what you need as well. Vary up where you place your bodies and where you place your drones as well. And when you get to a point where there is active resistance ahead, that's really when the team play needs to be more precise and more pronounced.
You can't just light a fire with a lighter. Friendship Team realized that to get a fire started, you have to lay the kindling out, and this is what their defensive prep phase turns into. Their player positioning, where the utility goes, just how they're starting to solidify themselves. And the moment that they get an opportunity to strike, just the slightest spark sets them ablaze. And up next, just have no way to fight that fire. And they need to realize that the number one way to clear this out is a strong wind, a bit of information, something in the maybe a smell or two off in the wind, as you can start to feel things out for their defensive Friendship Team. Just try to find those players. If you see floorboard holds being broken towards drum, the expectation is going to be a player down below, over towards kitchen, inside that supply, just behind short bar. I just feel like maybe up next needs to problem solve, like you said, a little bit quicker, not sit on their laurels in that space, and well, it won't be as hard as necessarily it was previously, because Karaoke T is no longer on the board. They'll head back over to office now, and this is where you're going to have that top approach, because it is on the objective down below, where you're just going to try to play the early denial from above, a lot like you'd see on Chalet for hitting kitchen and dining instead of office and master bedroom. But it won't matter for Tysal. They get taken off instantaneously, and there's maybe a chance for another, or at least a refrag, as Silent is being flushed away from that back stairs, and up next they're not able to get away with a refrag and set this up for a 4 versus 4.
We've seen Silent roaming around in positions like this a lot. He hasn't really been punished yet. But obviously he has the opening kill now, but we saw him kill Ryan earlier when he tried to drop that kitchen hatch. And it's just, again, where's the information on this position? And why are you not checking your spawn peaks, right? It's a very, very important thing, especially when you're already having problems with problem solving. When you have less bodies to do it and less utility to do it, that just makes the issue start to compound on itself. And we also have to remember, they have to execute on the top floor and then on the bottom floor immediately afterwards. So there's a lot they have to do with these few bodies.
Information spotted. No way Wi-Fi still picks up the frag there. Now still standing behind bar, as Kiro gets one more before being refragged back at 4 versus 2. Friendship Team have still control over the top floor, and that top-down approach you were highlighting for up next has started to falter, and they may need to start to think about actually just dropping to first and playing more direct. King Talks and Safehold, you have, I guess, some sort of flank watch here, and you could see Silence start to wrap back around if they truly wanted to, but you have no idea where these players are up on this first floor. One holding top of stairs just outside of VIP. You're trying to break this soft wall here to get a little bit of information closer towards the museum. They're hiding behind these exhibits, just trying to make sure these sites go unseen. And he's thinking, have some sort of expectation. There's one in that office hall, but nothing's been given just yet. Nick lying down prone, letting Wi-Fi have that crossfire behind short bar that is still yet to be cleared by up next. That's where we saw a devastating loss for the initial peak from Ryan, who should have had that fight. Easy clearance with the nade to force him closer towards that soft wall, probably reinforced by that point on outside balcony. And now King talks. Miracles will be required of you. Ryan was capable of getting 4 kills in a desperate spot. But King Talks, I think, is just letting the team talk in their ear, guide them, and just, I don't know, maybe assume this is another tactical timeout back-to-back for this side of Up Next.
But I think so as well, and I understand why, right? They took the tactical timeout and immediately get pummeled like they are. You usually want some more time to sit and watch, and, I mean... it's not like you're gonna win this anyways. But just these defenses from Friendship Team, right? Like, you put it out, they're very well planned, they're very well organized, and they're playing them very, very well, especially with that early round aggression. Whenever Up Next are trying to get into the building or establish themselves on the roam, they're always being pressured, or they're always... there's always outward pressure coming from Friendship Team. There's never a spot that you can just take for free. And then that's usually getting a pick. And then you get to a point where you have to clear the main site or the main area above the site. And then they're just not prepared for it at all, because the utility you wanted to clear out the guy in the position is gone because he's been killed by Silent on the roam. And you don't have time because you took so long to get to that point anyways, because you were constantly being harassed. And so Up Next, they need to pick up the pace, but they also need to do that while being less sloppy than they are now.
And what's the best way to go about that? Because you're looking at this as a team, as a progression, and when every option you brought to you so far has failed, you need to find the things that did work out initially for you, or even the parts that after failures came through, the parts that still found inklings of success, and start to implement them. This is where we're going to start to see the tests to teams' strat books, the depths to their strat books, just how much they're able to actualize the profits from previous rounds. You do see, once again, mirrors coming in, and this is going to have these black mirrors for free information and maybe even a chance for a kill afterwards, as the walls next to them have been breached, and that will give you a chance to go for a very dangerous swing, but one that can still be very profitable. Friendship Team know they're in that lead, and they know what's given them that success, and Silent wants to still be that player out in space, open in no man's land, hoping to find that frag, as there could be danger here for Safehold, player just inside Shrine. Maybe they go for a run, and a Claymore could be easily placed here to deny all of those. I believe that is having already been done, and yes, there it is on the opposing side, but you still have to be very wary of that, because this is free audio for the player inside a Shrine to just call out the number of footsteps, maybe the utility that's being sprung, and really give that information over to Silent, who is probably the person that has the most importance right now for Friendship Team on this defense, sitting all the way back with that Boss G towards Keisha and waiting for the right time to strike through the soft wall they've slightly breached inside of Karaoke.
They made an entry in towards top black, but they're very, very bunched up here. And I don't know if they know that Silent is doing the things that he's doing. And he is on a little bit of an island. Could have seen early gunfight come out. Safe hold, almost gets killed off as this kicks from, but Silent! He's able to get 2, no 3 kills! With the Boss G and SMG-12, Wi-Fi tags on for another. Safe hold alone yet again as Silent gets a 4K. And once again, Friendship Team lock Up Next completely out of the map.
That hatch wall is just too darn dominant for Friendship Team. Silent just strikes through the Boss G, possibly the strongest weapon right now on R6. And you can pull out the SMG-12 behind it. Just utter dominance, and the defense are powering through this first half. We saw this yesterday. Washington Wizards and Core, they took 5-1 for their splits on defense. Can the same thing hold true for Friendship Team? With the way things have been going, it does feel like that first round came down to a miracle play from Ryan. And we have to assume that the mental is doing fine. They got into the siege, they got into the scene, they've been playing in the scene. They have to survive this second half, and they've given themselves a little bit of a buffer, but 2 rounds, Ellie, would be the perfect spot to sit comfortably and say, we can give up 1 or 2 mistakes, we can recover in those rounds. Defense, they have to come to us, we'll play to our strengths, because Friendship Team, they've been playing to their strengths nearly every single time, and their strengths right now, they're named Silent and Wi-Fi, it feels like, because Wi-Fi early on the prowl down on the first floor for the first 2 rounds, and Silent since then, who's been going 9-1. Their only falter having a single time where they got taken down.
It has been anything but Silent so far in this game.
I'm just kidding.
No, I do want to say, I do agree with you. I think they want a second round here, if only for the fact that you don't want to let Friendship Team go into the attack with the momentum they have. You want to break that a little bit and give yourself some mental breathing room. And I think we're on a good foot here to start to see that, as we have a player in karaoke window this time, which is something I harped on them before. We're seeing that utility being cleared on black stairs as well. So it looks like we're going to see, again, a take that's very, very oriented towards that side. But as long as they have that pressure from multiple angles and the options, like they're giving themselves right now with that Brava drone, that's going to be very beneficial to them and the steps towards a more successful round.
I think the B is to clear out karaoke, trying to make sure nobody's in there. You still don't know for sure if anyone's close to wall, close to that backstairs wall, but at the very least, you have some sort of assurance there, because it's soft. Safehold would have a great visual if they decided to break that. Likelihood is that Friendship team are not going to be sitting there. You know that you have vision in the first place, thanks to Safehold now placing these shields down long hall. So there is no way that Silent can be sitting off towards Geisha, beating that soft wall, and securing a pretty easy frag in the process. But you do have to still worry about the player who's standing on top of Tea Room table. That was Kixrow, dealt with by Kiro. Nitro Cell has been expunged, but nobody's yet inside of karaoke. So a little bit early of a dousing from Friendship team for their utility. But the dousing's going both ways in terms of ballistics. It's Wi-Fi now dealing with one, a plank for a second. I highlighted their presence on the first floor just a little bit earlier, and they were rearing it through in this 6th round. Though refragged, that's value to even up this odds.
The smoke canisters start to ring out. The only one's been used so far, but it can still do a decent bit of damage if he has another one that he'd like to throw soon. Good positioning from Friendship team as well, especially considering that pressure I highlighted off the karaoke window is completely gone. Looks like we're going to see an attempt at a plant here coming out from Safehold if he can get out of the smoke canister, which doesn't quite hit him, and he's going to start getting it down.
Danger still very present. Toxic Bait just outside of it. The danger is there. Nitro from below, and Silent almost was able to piece up something from it. But instead, it's Nick and Ryan able to find frags. Silent's been taken off the board. Their second death only so far through 6. And now Nick and Eddie have to step up to deal with the offense that's holding now on this site. Rotate 4. Nick secures 1, but Ryan! When you need Ryan the most, they will appear round 1 and 6 to create a sandwich within this first half and get the second a major buffer, it feels like, for Skyscraper now as they rotate to defense.
When you need him, it's kind of like the inverse Avatar. Whenever you need him most, he is there. The only 2 rounds that they've won, Ryan was a large part of it. As now we go to the defense here for up next, which Scott and I both talked about 4-2 kind of being that mandatory split that you want for attacking on this map, and that is exactly what they got. Even if it's a little bit shaky, that does give them a little bit of room to breathe. Now, though, we have to see how Friendship team is going to look to play this map, because I talked a lot about up next not being good with their information when it needed to be, being very sloppy with how they allocated bodies, and not being very good at problem solving. All of which are usually things that professional teams are pretty good at, and as we highlighted, this is effectively the XLG roster, just with Nick in place of Woos. So, the problem solving there, the utility usage, the body management, that I do expect to be significantly better, so I'm interested to see how up next look to counter that.
Offensively, Friendship team don't look to be doing anything too different from what we saw overall from up next, though the blitz is a big difference for total capacity. That means there will be 3 shield operators for Friendship team. With how tight these corridors are and how dangerous these angles have been, and Friendship team know that best, they're utilizing it very well against up next. They're looking to try to deny any of that free information. There's free frags from just a cheeky peek or 2. Ryan too deep may be too deep in the thick of things off towards office, hiding behind the soft table. Now waiting with a Nitro Cell. Pings are coming from teammates trying to get a little bit of extra information, as that initial breach of wall through office did not find the success they were looking for. The second one will make it easy for Eddie to step through. And they did take a lot of damage from the toss of that Nitro, but they know now for free that that player is there, and it's just about getting somebody in here through window 2, actually, for the side of Friendship team, as they send themselves forward. Silent gets 2 in the process. Kicks Kixro's dealt with by Taizao and Nitro from below, but inevitably, Friendship Team come away with the higher amount of success at the start, and it just gets worse for the defensive up next. Now a 4 versus 2 as the R4C just comes alive in this round.
And we see Taizao, he's in a very, very exposed position here once they actually start going for him. Yeah, he has the shield, but there are 2 shields that could run out here with Silent behind it, going 12 and 2. They're going to start to make that push now. We see a player inside of Geisha as well. But look at this, Kiru. He has gotten 2 picks of his own, along with a pick from Tai. It's all left up to Wi-Fi in a 1 versus 2. Outside of the Geisha wall, looking to go back towards Terrace potentially, as he's now the one having to fight an uphill battle.
You don't have any assurance that drum has been clear. Default cam was there. That's information. Up next now, know for sure where you were lying, and these Undellas can only do so much to stall for the time being. If I will use their drone that was off towards Geisha, a little bit of free room in towards T. Kiru has perfect information. There's off towards Shrine. Did you spot Taizao just behind you as well? Wi-Fi. Both Candelas out. One towards Long Haul, another one into the drone hold T. Diffuser not in hand. Need to start pressuring towards it. Frags go, and it's just an easy double swing for up next. Though the fact that we had Friendship Team so dominantly in the lead, thanks to Silent going crazy off the rip with the R4C, the rest of the team just managed to get usurped in the process towards Sight, and the up next defense holds strong to get round 7 to start off this half.
They also did play that 2v1 very, very well, with both of them kind of sandwiching themselves on top of the diffuser, and then we saw Wi-Fi had to try to pick a gunfight without really being able to hide himself from the other one, and he just kind of gets swung by both of them at once, with Kiru being the one to claim the kill. I'm curious how the others died, though, because, I mean, obviously those were off screen, but you have that 4 versus 1, you have good utility with the Ying as well as the shields to get in the face of the defense and take the space that you need to kill them outright, if not just plant the diffuser. But we see them all fall 1 by 1 by 1, starting with the shields, if I'm not mistaken, as well, which is usually the opposite of how you'd expect that to go. Although I have often said that I believe shields kind of decrease in power the more bodies fall around them, and with it being mostly shields, that effect is somewhat amplified.
You can think of it like a tank, right? It's large, it's scary, it's dangerous, but without the giant cannon on the front of it, it really can only just roll dangerously in your direction, and I think a slate brisk jog can outpace a lot of them. And that's what we're kind of seeing from Friendship Team on mid-attack. The more bodies that fell around them, the less likely that tank that was rolling forward is going to find much impact, and simple crossfires can distract the indestructible shield in front of you to allow that spongy back to be dealt with. Up next, round 8, will it pan out any differently? Right off the start, we saw the dangers of Friendship Team's entry and their very thorough exploration of where these players were. The effectiveness for striking afterwards. I don't know if it'll be as effective this time around, but up next now realizing the weaknesses they had and the problem childs that came alongside it. Repel here for Kixro just outside of Karaoke and just trying to get a little bit of freebies, a lot like we saw from up next previously in that first half. They used that with a Grim though. Eddie though, the player using this, not sending the bees that direction, instead off elsewhere. Trying to get their own bit of freebie information as Silent does extend towards Black, has assistance from behind, does not know for sure if there's a player there, but there's enough utility in front of them to assure that there's likely one close, as that Malusi Banshee is wubbing its way in to slow down that Blackbeard's push through.
You see some pressure over towards Geisha as well. The Wi-Fi isn't applying it super actively. But Kixro, he's going to get the opener here, along with another one on Kiru. Silent tags on for a third. Yet again, 3 opening picks go the way of Friendship Team. So they secure the lead they want early on, but this is where things started to fall apart the last time. And it's where up next they're going to start looking to tear things apart again.
Rotate is here. You can hide behind Dragon Statue. You have still drones in the back pocket of Friendship Team, but But the freebie that you have, that is the shield in front of your face of Silence, it's only a matter of time, it feels like, before they drop it and start firing in the AR in the direction of the defense. Up through the main stairs, not gonna matter, dealt with easily. Safehold and Ryan holding strong, but eventually Safehold gets snuffed out and their life is forfeited. Ryan alone, Blackbeard gone up, and the shield blocks just enough to assure Friendship Team can secure an attacking round. And keep in mind, having only lost 2 on the defense, they don't need many more to secure a map win here on Skyscraper and solidify their start here for the Crucible season.
They only need 2 more rounds to win this now compared to the 4 that Up Next need, or 3 if they want to guarantee overtime. What I think is interesting is the variation between the lineups that we saw from Friendship Team in round 7 versus round 8. Because I think round 7 was just like, these guys have been struggling so far this game. We kind of have them on the ropes. We have a couple rounds to burn. Let's just see what happens. Can they actually handle a tomfoolery if we just throw it at them? And the answer was yes. So this time, the lineups that we see, it is a much more, I don't want to say I guess sensible lineup, right? It's what you'd expect more to see from a map like Skyscraper. And that's a repeat of what we're seeing on this round, right? They're going to, now that they kind of know where the limits of what they can get away with are, start to play within that a little bit and tighten things up just a little bit so they can secure this.
Tighten things up, well, start to, I say loose lips sink ships. Well, loose defense right now is costing you rounds. Friendship Team, I don't know if it's the free kills early, it feels like, or just the effectiveness for a 1 versus 2 where Kix has no right to get that many frags in that space. When they weren't playing out of their minds to start things off, it's really been a silent showcase for the Friendship Team roster. Being able to show why they're a part of this team, where they are finding impact and the value they have. You'll love to see it. 5-3, our score. Still, 30 seconds into this round. It's just an information game, just that poking and prodding of the offense for Friendship Team. The drones come out, and this is where your clutch drone's going to try to remove a lot of that information. There's the bulletproof camera. Maybe anything like a Malusi Banshee that's around. And mute jammers that got stolen. You see one just outside of there, just outside of bar, inside that, or outside the terrace door, inside of lounge. Friendship Team, I think they've found enough in 60 seconds to say that they have usurped a lot of Up Next's potential with their utility, and that prep phase becomes something of a demonstrably bad position for them. As there is a fight in Geisha, but Silent ends as a shield, and this is something that's really hard to go against, even if the damage is going as the feet get a little bit spotted. That's why you bring out the rifle and rip the head off Kira.
Yet another opening pick for Friendship Team. They have 7 right now compared to the 2 that their opponents have, which just is, I mean, it's been telling of this game, I feel. It's been very, very telling of how this game has gone so far. They don't get a cascade of opening kills going their way this time, though, so there are a lot more bodies on site for Up Next to play with. But I should point out that Kira was one of the only 2 players on Up Next that was really performing very well in the kill department. They still do have Ryan, who's sitting at 8 and 6, but no one else is really shooting back like they need to right now.
You give up too much information, you even give up a peek. It could cost you potentially the round, if not just your life and the reliance on a teammate to have to go crazy. I mean, King Talks and Safehold are still sitting at a single kill apiece with 8 deaths going the other way. They have died in every single round up to this point, even through Up Next 3 round wins. Ryan, the big proprietor of the big 2 in their first half, still sitting with 8 kills, and that's barely better than, say, Wi-Fi or even Nick inside a Friendship Team. Just inside of that lounge desk. Need to be very wary of that push forward. Friendship Team are losing players, but they get 2, no 3 in quick succession. Ryan, what just happened? No way Safehold can survive. And round 9 falls to the attack again. They're knocking on the door of a Crucible win here today.
It's one of those rounds that I'm always really confused how the play-by-play is going to do it, because, like, there's so much that happens at once, but, you know, sure, Friendship Team won't complain. Just that ability to get in and get that opening pick and establish themselves inside of the map confidently has been so huge. Even though they don't cascade the opening kills like they did the first 2 rounds, they had so much ground they took to play with. They were inside of terrace. They were starting to knock on the door of drum. and they had everything before that as well, so there was so much they could work with that even when a couple kills started to go the way of Up Next, they were able to rotate and find where the openings that Up Next were leaving were. And combine that with the fact that there was a little bit of sloppy play from a couple different people on Up Next when it came down to the actual execute, when they were faced with the Blackbeard, and just all kind of combines for that very quick and decisive execute we saw.
Up Next are playing the extension alley, and I like seeing it, and they have multiple players. That's just how you play Skyscraper. But I do feel like there was a big difference between Friendship's escape back towards site, their rotate back towards objective when the pressure would come on from Up Next, from what we're seeing right now, when Friendship team brings out the pressure, and Up Next have to start to unfurl back towards their site and re-solidify and restructure. And I think the problem is that everyone in Up Next is trying to move at the same time, which means, guess what? Backs are looking the wrong way. You're now having no one with their gun up, watching cover. It needs to be a one-in-one kind of style. The two players that are extending towards T or Geisha, they need to have a player watching them as the other one starts to go. And that's all about timing. And I think what we're kind of undervaluing from French team right now is the way that they are going almost unseen and unheard to that point. Yes, they're making their presence known, but you never know 100% when Friendship team is going to extend, when they're going to make that final push, the big push. And Up Next are miscalculating it nearly every single time, and that miscalculation is ultimately costing them major rounds, and very well could be costing them their first map win here in Crucible.
You want to start yourself off well when you're in the early stages of the main season like this, right? Is even though you're not on elimination point yet, really not that many games away from not making the playoffs, and that starts to weigh on your shoulders as you get farther into a league and as you accumulate more and more losses. And even though it is Friendship team, you do want to make things a little bit closer while you're on the defense of Skyscraper. They get their first opening pick in a while, thanks to Kira, but he is killed off immediately as yet again we see Friendship team comfortably establish themselves inside of the map.
Yeah, that terrorist player no longer alive, though King Talk's able to find a pretty good frag here with the UMP. No longer able to stay stand. No Candelas now for the extension. We saw the value that Friendship team were trying to have with those Candelas towards T. Send one to long haul in through the drone hole, connecting through that mezzanine side. Friendship team now no longer having that will start to have to reevaluate where they're going to have to play the attack, necessarily where they can play. Knowing the floorboards are open below them. Timing is just right, I believe, for Ryan was peeking the other way, trying to transition on the first floor, maybe towards open, trying to play towards that dining side, the table side. It may not matter. Silent, using this breach, stepping through Geisha. Could have some vision down long haul. Rips the head off Tyzel, hoping for more. One player on main stairs. Timing could be right, and it's good for a second. As 2 kills for Silent could mean 3, because this player, once they heat up alley, seems to never stop.
And the 2 last players on Up Next, they have 4 kills combined, Sky.
It's just disastrous. Next row. Dying, giving a third to one more. King Talks holding on. Pistol out, and the pistol's good for Eddie. It's a Monty facing off against a castle. A shield strapped to your back and a shield placed in a doorway or window. But the diffuser goes down, and Eddie has no information. Trying to play for an audio cue, baiting out the initial plant. Peeking once more in the UMP. No recoil, no problem. And Eddie is dusted, securing that this map continues on. And Friendship team falter at match point.
We see for the first time in a little while, Up Next are more fearless with how they take the gunfights versus Friendship team. They tried to get under their skin and make sure that they couldn't establish themselves comfortably. First, Friendship team lost that opening pick, and then even when they refragged it, there was still another pick onto a player that was trying to get further into the map. And that's not something that we saw on really any of the previous defenses from Up Next. And if they can keep that up, that really is a lot of the success with playing against Friendship team. They've been allowed to be so comfortable with the pace they've dictated, on the ground they've taken, and every step they've taken towards the victory, that Up Next have just had to fight from the back foot the entire time.
Being on the wrong foot for so long starts to cause a lot of problems. Maybe back pain. Maybe you got to get some like new inserts for your shoes. But something has to change for Up Next, and they're very aware of that. That last round was maybe a little bit better for them, but the fact that Silent was able to crawl through Geisha, catch a player down long, no information, no call out is there, despite having a player with ears, I'm sure. I don't know what brand of headphone they have, but they may want to reevaluate it. Just sitting at the main stairs, that should be plenty of audio cues to you. That just means that you know there's someone in Geisha. The call has to be made. The refrag should have been as easy as that, but you rotate or turn at just the wrong time, and Siege timing comes through and rears. It's just abhorrent head in this lobby. As you do see a bit of a replication of what we saw really was Nick did in that first half. The early peak, the first blood, and up next now have their advantage they've been hoping for against Friendship Team, and that's a Blackbeard that's been so effective for Friendship Team, no longer available for the rest of this round.
They did it last time, they look to replicate it again this time. We'll see if it's as successful so far. It is 2 versus 5 now for up next, as the bodies of their opponents all fall by the wayside.
Shots have to go out. Silent has to be perfect here. Nitro's cleared. Valkyrie peeking once more, and it will not matter. The moment one is fighting you, you'll stand and fight for Silent. But the second, third, no, fourth feels like an impossibility. They have to come at you one by one. And up next, are starting to realize that when they sandwich, like we saw in round 5, they tend to find a whole lot more success. Sorry, round 6, they tend to find a whole lot more success for them. And it now is just getting closer and closer. Last round in regulation time, and up next have a very big shot at tying things up 6-6. And maybe I would like to see, did Friendship Team use their timeout? Yeah, no, I believe it was up next that used it in that first half. I'd like to see maybe Friendship Team take a moment to talk things through, but I mean, they seem like they're still confident. They've been talking a whole lot in the off chat, so surely they're not going to let up next get their 6, right here, folks?
I've seen crazier things happen.
Absolutely.
In my time, as both a player and a caster, as well as the little bit that I was coaching. But it is like I was saying, right? When up next are timid, when they're letting Friendship Team get into the map, even in rooms that are actively occupied, and they just back away, they let Friendship Team create a foothold, which they use to expand to the rest of the map with the ground they're taking as time goes on. But these last couple rounds, they haven't been letting Friendship Team just get in and establish themselves however they want. That last round especially, there was 3 kills that up next got before Friendship Team were able to answer, and it gave them such a large buffer zone that they absolutely need to keep replicating if they want to take this to OT.
That's one obviously started off fairly poorly. Ali is up next. We're able to secure a first blood from the initial spawn peak. There's outside run out from balcony. No matter what the case is, Friendship Team don't want to have their start go so wrong. They aren't afraid of the Blackbeard. We've seen a lot from Friendship Team's offense. Instead, a little bit more of a reliant on utility. Still Eddie with the very heavy use of that Montaigne shield, as both teams have been using. Now Kix, who was on that Blackbeard, just using an 8K in a different way. It's King Talks that's at the other end of it, and that 7.62 rips through the competition. Now securing that first blood. Something up next have been pretty good about these last few rounds. What, 2 in a row, I believe, if not 3, that were able to tie things up to this stage and get at the precipice of reaching OT. Friendship Team getting that first could be the start of something that turns the wrong way just at the last moment and secures their match point inevitability, it feels like, of getting their 7.
You see Silent in a pretty interesting position here. I don't think they know that he's here. And he can't necessarily take the site by himself. He can just poke out and get another kill while his teammates are actually trying to poke at the site itself. The lack of vertical control could potentially be an issue, but if they're able to fluster these defenders enough or just make the man count go far enough their way, that could be all they need. We see Eddie insert himself into the site with the diffuser in his hand as his teammates go on Overwatch while he starts the plan.
Seems almost impossible to deny. The Nitro cell goes out, but it is cleared away perfectly, and now you can step back through the hole as Kix crossfires Kiro. A pistol out to safe hold, and it's just Taizao. A 1v4 knows that Eddie's behind him, can't look the other way, and can't go the other way. It's a 7th for Friendship Team, and a map and series win to start off their side in the Crucible. It's trial by fire or die by fire, and Friendship Team ride the heat waves through to their next series.
Very well done from Friendship Team. Excellently played throughout that entire game. A little bit shaky there towards the end of their defensive half, but their defensive or their offensive half, excuse me, but it's usually just how Skyscraper goes. With that being said, do have Lumi here to help us break things down a little bit.
Match. I started to get a little nervous at the end there. Kind of looking at the breakdown of it, I mean, obviously, Friendship Team was on their first defense half. They took that 4-2 split, even with the timeout for Up Next coming in that first half. What do you guys think really, like, what did Up Next do wrong on their attacking that they couldn't really get a favorable split for them?
Maybe First Bloods, right? I feel like a lot of what Up Next were doing were one-dimensionality in the very start. They kind of got away with it in round 1, right? Ryan carries the day. Also in round 6, it's whatever, but the big problem, Child, was that when they even started to expand, they weren't getting these kills, they weren't finding the frags, and Friendship Team were able to get back to site very safely. Keep in mind, when Friendship Team were on the offense, it was the total opposite story. Up Next could never retreat back to site. They weren't finding these first bloods, and in the few rounds we finally did start to see them get those first bloods, the scoreline starts to, tally up further and further to get us at that point of it being 6-5, and very well could have had their shots until first blood goes the wrong way, and Friendship Team just ride through the rest of that success and get the frags needed to close out for the 7th.
Yeah, it can get a little nerve-wracking at the end there. As soon as you see that match point, you need to start bringing out these round wins. But you kind of mentioned, like, the frags. Was there a specific player, really, that stood out for you on either team? I know you guys mentioned Silent a bit on Friendship Team, but was there any real player that stuck out for better or for worse on either team?
Well, I believe that for most of the game, Safehold and King Tox combined for 0 kills, which is kind of the opposite of Silent. They kind of co-opted his name a little bit as they were Silent on the scoreboard, whereas Silent's on the other end, ending with, I believe, 20 kills. He had at least 19 kills by the time that game ended, which is absolutely nuts. You do not see that every day.
For sure. And we did see, you kind of mentioned, when Up Next started to bring back their round a little bit in the second half there. Do you think that they finally figured something out aside from the First Bloods? Was there something that they started doing well that they kind of failed to do in that very last round that cost them the overtime?
I feel like I mentioned it around round 11, where it felt like a lot of Up Next were when they were falling back to site and trying to, restabilize. They were having all the players try to go at the same time, which inevitably created problems where nobody's facing the opposition. It's their spongy backs in comparison to the at least somewhat dangerous in the right hands, and maybe the right hands weren't there for Up Next for a good part of that. As Ali had mentioned, a couple of those players, they weren't ready to fight back, right? And so the speed at which Friendship Team and the unexpected nature of their assaults, I think we're catching them off guard. They got a lot better with that. Removing the First Blood, Blackbeard pick was a really big one for them, and we saw no Blackbeard in that last round for Friendship Team, which was a big, wrench, so to say, for things for Up Next. They didn't really know how to face the very gun-up round and the very gun-up team that Friendship were bringing for that last one, and we saw the kills go that way for a reason. And I think Up Next started to do better just because they were very aware of the fact that they can play one back at a time. They could read into it. It just took them way too long, in my opinion, to realize how Friendship Team were playing, and then Friendship Team, try one strategy in round 11, try the other one in round 12. Eventually one will work out and you'll get your way through to match and series points.
All right, well, we are just about to take our break here. Before we do that, though, Ali, do you have any last-minute thoughts, either advice for one of the teams or just kind of thoughts about how that game went?
I mean, I think for Up Next, just don't read into it too much. It's a Pro League team that, as we said earlier, qualified for Esports World Cup, and they won a couple of games there as well, so it's not exactly the worst team to lose to, but just, you gotta get more comfortable in those early fights. That was a ton of what was deciding that game, is in those early engagements, they were either all dying or all running away and not actively contesting Friendship Team whatsoever.
All right, well, that was it for our first matchup for tonight. Up next, we will have 1HP versus Slime Belief, so make sure you guys stick around, and we'll see you after this break.